You pour a cup of vinegar into your toilet. Nothing dramatic happens. No explosion, no smoke, no instant transformation. Just silence. And that's exactly why most people miss what's really going on. Because what you're looking at isn't a cleaning trick. It's a slow, invisible chemical war. And you're the one who started it. See, most people think cleaning is simple. You see dirt, you remove dirt, problem solved. But your toilet doesn't work like that. Your toilet is not a surface. It's a system, a hidden ecosystem of water, minerals, bacteria, pressure, and time. And over time, something begins to form. Not dirt, something worse. A crust. Hard, pale, almost invisible at first. Like the walls of a cave slowly growing inward. This is limescale. Calcium, magnesium. Mineral ghosts left behind every time water evaporates. You don't notice it forming, because it doesn't look like dirt. It looks normal. And that's the first trap, because your brain is wired to ignore slow change. If something builds up gradually enough, it becomes invisible. Until one day, your toilet isn't flushing right. Water flows slower. The surface stains. There's a faint smell you can't explain, and you think, I need to clean this. So you reach for something strong. Bleach, chemical cleaners, something that screams power. But here's the twist. Bleach doesn't remove limescale. It disinfects. It kills bacteria. But it leaves the mineral structure intact. It's like sterilizing a broken machine without fixing the broken parts. So the problem stays, hidden, untouched, waiting. Now enter vinegar. Quiet, cheap, unimpressive. But chemically, it's the opposite of everything you expect. Because vinegar is an acid, and limescale, that's alkaline. When they meet, something changes. Not visually at first, but on a molecular level, the structure begins to collapse. Imagine a fortress made of stone. Bleach walks in and kills everyone inside, but the walls remain. Vinegar doesn't care about the people. It melts the walls. The calcium carbonate reacts. It breaks apart, releases carbon dioxide, dissolves into water-soluble compounds. The solid becomes invisible. And suddenly, the thing you thought was permanent disappears. Not because you scrubbed harder, not because you used more force, but because you understood the system and attacked it correctly. This is where most people get it wrong. They think effort equals results. Scrub harder, use stronger chemicals, do more. But systems don't respond to effort. They respond to alignment. And your toilet is just the beginning. Because once you realize this, you start seeing it everywhere. In your body, in your habits, in your life. Problems that look solid are often just the result of slow accumulation. Tiny layers, repeated over time, until they feel permanent. And then we attack them the wrong way. With force instead of understanding. With intensity instead of precision. But vinegar doesn't fight harder. It fights smarter. It dissolves. Quietly, patiently, inevitably. And here's where things get uncomfortable. Because if something as simple as vinegar can undo what looked permanent, what else in your life isn't actually stuck? What else are you attacking the wrong way? What if the problem isn't how hard you're trying, but how completely you misunderstand the system you're inside? And this is where the story flips. Because pouring vinegar into your toilet isn't about cleaning. It's about perception. It's about realizing that what looks dirty isn't always the real problem. And what looks clean might just be something you've stopped noticing. And right now, there's something else happening inside that toilet. Something even stranger. Because while the minerals dissolve, another system is waking up. One you can't see. One you've been ignoring your entire life. And it doesn't care about vinegar. Not at all. Because while the minerals are dissolving, something else is still there. Watching. Waiting. Living. You see, your toilet isn't just a mineral system. It's a biological city. A microscopic metropolis where billions of organisms are constantly fighting, feeding, reproducing. A place where life doesn't just survive, it thrives. And here's the part nobody tells you. Clean doesn't mean empty. It never did. Even after you pour vinegar, even after the limescale dissolves, even after everything looks cleaner, the ecosystem is still alive. Because vinegar isn't a nuclear weapon. It's selective. It disrupts structure. It changes pH. But it doesn't wipe out existence. And that's where your intuition breaks. Because your brain wants a simple story. Dirty to clean, bad to gone, problem to solved. But reality doesn't work like that. Reality is layers. And when you remove one layer, you expose another. Sometimes, something worse. Think about it. That smell you notice sometimes? It's not just dirt, it's gases, byproducts of bacterial metabolism, hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, tiny chemical whispers from invisible life forms breaking things down. So when vinegar changes the environment, you're not just cleaning, you're rewriting the rules of survival inside that system. Some bacteria die, others adapt, some become weaker, others become dominant. It's not a cleanup, it's a shift in power, a regime change. And suddenly, your toilet isn't a static object anymore. It's a dynamic battlefield, and you are the one interfering with it, without even realizing. Now here's where things get even stranger, because humans have a deep obsession with eliminating. We want to remove germs, kill bacteria, sterilize everything. We associate cleanliness with absence, but in nature, there is no absence. There is only balance. Every system is alive. Your skin, your gut, your home, even your toilet. And when you try to eliminate everything, you don't create purity. You create instability. It's like wiping out every species in a forest except one. At first, it looks clean, controlled, simple. But then, something breaks. Because systems need tension. They need diversity. They need invisible interactions you don't fully understand. So when you pour vinegar into your toilet, you're not just dissolving minerals. You're interfering with a living network. You're shifting chemistry, shifting biology, shifting equilibrium. And the crazy part? You're doing it with something you could drink, which should make you pause. Because if something this simple can reshape an entire micro-ecosystem, what else in your life is more fragile than it looks? What else is being held together, not by strength, but by balance? Now zoom out, because this isn't about toilets anymore. This is about how humans interact with systems they don't understand. We see symptoms, we attack symptoms, we ignore structure, we ignore balance, and then we're surprised when problems come back. Stronger, more complex, harder to fix. Your toilet clogs again, the smell returns, the stains come back, and you think, I need something stronger, more chemicals, more force, more control. But that's the second trap, because the harder you try to dominate a system, the more unpredictable it becomes. Just like bacteria adapting, just like ecosystems collapsing, just like habits in your own life. You push harder, and resistance grows. And suddenly, what started as a simple cleaning task becomes an endless loop. Fix, return, fix again. And here's the moment most people never reach. The realization that you're not actually solving anything. You're just managing cycles. And vinegar? It's not the solution. It's a glimpse, a tiny window into how systems actually behave. Because vinegar works, not because it's powerful, but because it's aligned with the problem. Acid meets alkaline. Structure meets counterstructure. It's not force, it's compatibility. And that idea, that quiet, almost invisible principle, is far more dangerous than any cleaning hack. Because once you understand it, you can't unsee it. You start noticing where you're forcing instead of aligning, where you're fighting instead of understanding, where you're treating symptoms instead of systems. And then, the final layer reveals itself, the one that has nothing to do with toilets, nothing to do with vinegar, but everything to do with you. Because your brain is doing the exact same thing, every single day. Because your brain is also a system, not a command center, not a clean, logical machine, but a living, shifting network, built on layers, patterns, accumulation. Just like that toilet, thoughts aren't random, they're residues, left behind by repetition. Experiences evaporate, but something always remains, a belief, a reaction, a bias, tiny deposits of mental limescale. And just like before, you don't notice it forming, because it happens slowly, quietly, over years, until one day, you react to something, and you don't even know why. You avoid opportunities, you feel stuck, you repeat the same mistakes, and you think, this is just who I am. But it's not. It's buildup. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because most people try to fix their minds, the same way they try to clean their toilets. They use force, motivation, discipline. They try to scrub their behavior, push harder, think more positively, eliminate bad thoughts. But that's bleach. It disinfects the surface without touching the structure. So the patterns remain, hidden, intact, waiting. And then they come back, Same reactions, same loops, same outcomes. And you feel like you're broken. But you're not broken. You're misaligned. Because real change doesn't come from force. It comes from chemistry, from understanding what your patterns are made of, and introducing something that dissolves them, not fights them, dissolves them, just like vinegar. And here's the twist most people never see. The goal isn't to remove everything, not in your toilet, not in your mind, because emptiness isn't stability, balance is. Some bacteria must exist, some patterns must remain. You don't erase systems, you recalibrate them. You shift the environment, so different outcomes become inevitable. And suddenly, control feels different. It's not about domination, it's about design. Not about fighting harder, but about aligning smarter. And this is the moment where everything flips. Because pouring vinegar into your toilet was never about cleaning. It was a demonstration, a quiet, everyday experiment, showing you how reality actually works. Systems over surfaces, alignment over force, balance over elimination. And once you see that, you start questioning everything. Why do some habits stick, no matter how hard you try? Why do some problems disappear when you stop forcing them? Why does change sometimes happen, not when you push harder, but when you finally understand what you're dealing with? Because the world isn't a set of objects to control, it's a web of systems to navigate. And most people are playing the wrong game. They're scrubbing walls in a world that responds to chemistry. They're using strength in systems that only respond to alignment. And that's why they stay stuck. Not because they're weak, but because they're fighting the wrong battle. So next time you pour vinegar into your toilet, don't just watch what disappears. Watch how it disappears. Quietly, gradually, inevitably. No drama, no force. Just the right interaction at the right level. And maybe that's the real lesson. That the most powerful changes in your life won't feel like effort. They'll feel like things finally start making sense.